2020 is over, and thank God for that. However, there were some great movies that came out that we got to enjoy from the comfort of our own home. So without further ado, these are my favorite films of 2020. Hello everyone, please keep in mind that I still need to watch some movies that were released in 2020 that I haven't had the chance to watch yet. Some of the ones that are still on my watch list are First Cow, Kajillionaire, I still haven't watched Tenet, Nomadland, although that still hasn't come out in streaming services, so it's kind of impossible to see. Alright, let's start with the 10th position on my list, and it's Weathering With You. Weathering With You was technically released in 2019, but it was released in the US in 2020. I watched it in 2020, so I'm gonna count it as a 2020 movie. Weathering With You is directed by Makoto Shinkai. You probably heard of Your Name, which he directed as well, and it was a huge success. Weathering With You follows the story of this teenager who runs away to Tokyo, and he meets this girl who apparently has this magical powers, if you want to look at it that way. She can literally control the weather. So if it's pouring, it's raining, she can make it go away and make the weather sunny. So they come up with a little business where they go to different events, changing the weather for people. First of all, it's breathtakingly beautiful, the animation, and not only that, I feel like the emotion, the music, and the story, everything is there with this movie. So I wanted to include it as number 10 in my list. Alright, let's move on to number 9, and that is Lovers Rock, directed by Steve McQueen. So Lovers Rock is part of this series of movies directed by Steve McQueen called Small Axe. This movie takes place in a house party. To me, it was just pure joy watching this movie. It is so smooth. The way that the camera moves, the way that it lingers, it just draws you in. It's like you get to feel everything, you get to experience everything through these shots. No shot in this movie goes by too fast. Nothing happens too fast. It was just a delightful experience. The way that they enjoy the music, enjoy each other's company, the way that they dance, the way that they sing out loud to the lyrics, everything about this movie was just so charming and delightful. Alright, let's move on to number 8, Wolfwalkers, directed by Tom Moore. Wolfwalkers is an animated movie, and it comes from a studio called Cartoon Saloon. They have made incredible movies such as Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. Wolfwalkers follows Robin. She's a girl who is the daughter of a hunter, a wolf hunter. One day she goes into the woods and she befriends this mysterious girl who is also a wolf. I myself am a sucker for a nature setting and magical stories and fairy tales, and Wolfwalkers has all of that. It is definitely a super entertaining movie. It moves really fast, so you'll never be bored. The adventure and the emotion were definitely not cut short. Alright, number 7 is Emma, directed by Autumn the Wild. I've talked about this movie in a bunch of other videos. I'm a sucker for period films and period series and just period everything. I still haven't watched Bridgerton though on Netflix. Let me know if that's any good, because I'm kind of not convinced, but convince me if you watched it and you liked it. Alright, back to Emma. Emma is a story by Jane Austen and it stars Anya Taylor-Joy. This has been the year of Anya Taylor-Joy. You know, good for her. It is just absolutely stunning. I think the reason why I like period films so much is because of the production design, the art direction, and the costumes, and the hair. All of the visuals I love. And this one in particular is full of pastel colors, which, you know, is my thing. I love a pastel color palette. The acting by Anya Taylor-Joy is just so charming. I just love her. But anyways, number 6 is Soul, directed by Pete Docter. Soul is of course the latest Pixar film, and it was such a nice surprise from Pixar. You know, Pixar to me always delivers. There's not a single Pixar movie in which I don't cry, and yet I did not cry watching Soul. Soul was definitely the most mature movie that Pixar has ever done. I feel like Pixar always likes to tug at our heartstrings and make us feel nostalgic for our childhood, and you know, I guess that's what makes me sometimes sad when I watch Pixar movies and I cry. But this one, it didn't make me sad. It made me really happy actually. And I feel like the message was spot on to someone my age, someone who is more of a young adult, and even, you know, older people. Joe has always thought that music is his passion, music is his calling. The reason why he lives is so that he can play jazz. Sometimes we feel like, yeah, we need to have a purpose in life so that we have something to strive for, something to live for, basically. You don't have to have something that you are passionate about. You just need to live. You're here in this earth and you just have to go live and be happy about living and enjoying life. You don't need to be passionate about something just so that you can feel alive. I don't know what my favorite Pixar movie is anymore, but Soul is definitely up there. Alright, let's move on to my top 5 movies, starting at number 5 with Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Directed by Eliza Hittman. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is a very, very quiet film. And I'm a fan of quiet movies. With a movie, you don't necessarily have to say something in order to portray something or send out a message. You can do it through, you know, just acting alone, with anything really other than dialogue. This movie was just enigmatic and powerful and so effective. So this movie is about a girl, Autumn, who is pregnant and she has to deal with it. So she goes with her cousin Skylar to try to get an abortion. It proves to be an extremely difficult thing to do, not only emotionally, but it's also difficult because of the resources. They're not as easy to obtain. We learn little by little about Autumn's situation. Nothing is ever explicitly said, but we can infer through situations. Especially there's this one scene that is the most powerful scene of the movie, and it's the title scene, and it just gave us everything kind of that we needed to know. Honestly, it's a devastating film. It was also so sincere. The acting was great. It just felt like we were following this girl's journey, almost like a documentary. Alright, let's go to number 4, Minari, directed by Lee Isaac-chung. Minari is about a Korean family that lives in the United States, and they moved to this farm in Arkansas. Again, I've mentioned this movie I think in a couple videos before. It's starred by Steven Yeun, who is just amazing, and I think that he deserves an Academy Award for this movie, or at least a nomination. This is an emotional, captivating, and truthful story. There's a quote by Steven Yeun where he said, "We were trying to tell the story of what's it like when you just wake up and you just are." And I feel like this is the most truthful thing that he could have said, because that's exactly what it is. This family is just existing, right? It was just so honest and so truthful, so captivating, and it's just a human story. Alright, let's move on to number 3, Sound of Metal, directed by Darius Martyr. So Sound of Metal is about this guy who is a drummer, and he all of a sudden one day loses his hearing. Such a life-changing and difficult thing to go through, especially for someone who is a drummer. Experiencing loss is never easy, especially if it's the loss of your normal life. Ruben has to deal with this new reality. At first by trying to pretend that nothing has changed, but then of course he has to try to adapt somehow. One thing to note about this movie is the sound design. It's just genius. I just love this movie a lot. Alright, we are in the top 2, Promising Young Woman, directed by Emerald Fennell. Starring the incredible Carey Mulligan, she plays Cassie, a 30-year-old who still lives with her parents. It seems like her life is really going nowhere. She has no ambition, she has no emotions really. She seems really, really cold on the outside. We find out though that she's kind of living a double life, and this is when things really start to take a turn. Okay, first I just want to talk about the aesthetics of this movie. Pink and blue and pastel colors. Carey Mulligan's outfits are always just so girly and so colorful. She always wears fluffy sweaters and bows in her hair. Her nails are super colorful, which really contrasts her personality. She's this really cold, kind of emotionless person, but on the outside she looks like she would be the most bubbly and friendly person. But then when I saw the movie, I discovered that that is only the surface level until the deeper and darker undertones of the movie emerge. And that's really where it becomes a great movie to me. Another thing that I really liked was there's a montage set to Paris Hilton's Stars Are Blind. Yes. Also, there's an orchestra version of Toxic by Britney Spears. Basically, the whole soundtrack of this movie is amazing. The wardrobe, the set design, and the story. Everything captivated me about this movie. Alright, so we have reached the number 1 spot, and that is Ya No Estoy Aquí, or I'm No Longer Here, directed by Fernando Frias. Ya No Estoy Aquí is a movie from Mexico, and it takes place in Monterrey. It's about this 17-year-old boy who is part of this group of other kids in his neighborhood, and they call themselves Los Tercos. All that they do is listen to cumbia music. However, Ulises, our protagonist, somehow mixed himself into these problems with another group. Unfortunately, he had to leave Monterrey and go to New York illegally. Okay, so the next day after I watched this movie, I still could not stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about Ulises, and I couldn't stop thinking about that perfectly bitter last shot of the movie. To be honest, I hadn't seen something as honest as this film, not only in the way that this culture is represented, but also in the way that it told the coming-of-age story of our protagonist. We see how little by little he's losing his identity unwillingly, and how he has to deal with that without any false hope of, things being the way that they used to be. Juan Daniel Garcia, who plays Ulises, is absolutely amazing. I was completely taken aback because this is his first role ever. He has never acted in his life, and the way that he just so sincerely portrayed this role just blows my mind. And it was just impossible not to feel exactly what he was feeling in those moments during each scene. I didn't expect to be so in love with this movie as I am when I watched it, but then the next day I still couldn't get it out of my head. Hola. It's just one of those stories that is so hard to come across. Like there is no movie like this movie, and there's no story like this story. So please, if you have a chance, watch it. Luna. So please, if you have a chance, watch it on Netflix. And yeah, no. Come on, it's a baby. Alright, we have reached the end of the list. Those were my top 10 2020 movies. Please let me know what are your top movies of the year, because like I said at the beginning, I still haven't watched all of the movies that I wanted to watch in 2020. I'm still taking recommendations, so please let me know down below. Also, if you have watched any of the movies that I mentioned, let me know what you thought. By the way, as I've watched these movies, I've been also putting my thoughts on my letterboxd and on my Instagram stories. I also created a highlight of movie recommendations on my Instagram, so yeah, make sure to go follow me there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.